Hello and welcome back to my channel, everyone. Today I will be covering UFO sightings and alien encounters in the state of Oregon. Before we get into it, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment as it really helps my channel out, and I really appreciate it. If you want to check out more of my paranormal videos, you can click the pop-up on the top right corner for a full playlist. And if you have your own paranormal encounters, UFO sightings, or any other kind of strange story, you can either share it in the comments, post on my subreddit, r/ihaveaspookystory, or send it to my story submission email, pinkpossiblystories@gmail.com. Maybe your story will be in a future video. So, with all that out of the way, let's dive into it. Railroad men spot UFO. From the Herald and News, December 8th, 1969. 3 Southern Pacific Company railroad men saw an unidentified flying object early last Friday night near Kirk, about 40 miles north of the Klamath Falls. I'll tell you, it gives you the creeps. Noel Kylout, the conductor on a train with 106 cars moving southwest toward Klamath Falls. John Burgoyne, the engineer, apparently saw it first. He called it to my attention, Kyloat said. It was a bright light heading north. It had a long, narrow beam. It was moving diagonally across the tracks, the conductor reported. Kyloat was unable to estimate the length of the light. He did say, though, that it was at least 5,000 feet high. The light crossed the tracks in front of us. I've never seen anything as bright as that. It looked like a laser beam, Kylout stated. According to Kylout, he watched the light for at least 2 minutes. While looking at the light, Kylout said he also saw the lights of an airplane traveling toward Klamath Falls. Then, all at once, all of the lights went out, the conductor remarked. Eugene Naramore, the flagman on the crew, was the 3rd person to see the lights. The United States Air Force in Klamath Falls, when contacted this morning, was unable to verify the reported occurrence. Area skywatchers spot flying object. From the Bend Bulletin, July 11th, 1969. Described as a hemisphere or half moon, an unidentified object drifted high over central Oregon Thursday afternoon and was observed in one locality for nearly 4 hours. In the Fort Rock area, Mrs. Reuben A. Long and her sister, Neva Workman, got a fine view of the object and noted that it was very high and apparently silvery white. At times, it appeared transparent. Spotted in the southwest, the object first drifted north, then west. Eventually, it disappeared behind clouds. Radio reports indicate the object was spotted also in the Eugene area and was listed as a UFO, an unidentified flying object. Some observers said the object was as large as a big jet plane. Some observers said the UFO appeared to have a solid base. Recent UFO sightings routinely investigated by Kingsley officer. From the Klamath Falls Herald and News, July 13th, 1969. People probably won't believe me, but on July 30th, my brother and I were up on a dead-end road target practicing, and we were just starting down the road when I was looking at the sky toward Cago Hill. I think we both saw it at once. It was like a big light, and it was moving slowly. It had a wide vapor trail. So wrote Gail Boomala, 12, 76 Washington Street, in a recent letter to the Herald and News. Gail and her brother Mark, 16, had joined the growing group of Americans who have reported seeing unidentified flying objects, or UFOs. Gail continued that all of a sudden the object blacked out. A second later, something appeared, but it didn't have a vapor trail. All of a sudden, it disappeared like it had disintegrated in a puff of smoke. As we watched, something real small looking fell into the hills. When we first saw the UFO, my brother focused field glasses on it and he said it looked as if it had 4 engines. Gale, unlike many sighters of UFOs, went on to note the time of evening, the condition of the sky, the direction in which the object was moving, and the length of time taken by the process she and her brother witnessed. The Herald and News alerted First Lieutenant Harry Happinen, 24, the unidentified flying objects officer at Kingsley Field. The commander of each Air Force base is responsible for carrying out investigations of UFOs in his area. Normally, this job is delegated to a subordinate such as Happinen. The official position of the Air Force is that there is insufficient evidence to indicate that these objects are extraterrestrial in origin, Happinen explained, referring to the theory that UFOs may be manned space vehicles from another planet. But the Air Force does not deny the possibility of life on other planets either. Happinen, who has investigated half a dozen UFO sightings in the Klamath Falls area in the past year and a half, became interested in the subject before he joined the Air Force. Happinen urged the public to report any UFO sightings to the Air Force. I'm happy to investigate any calls I get, though not all of my cases turn out to be unknowns. UFOs are often connected with flying saucer cults, whose members tell strange stories of visions, revelations, and meetings with astronauts from other planets. Happinen said his experience with such cults is non-existent. I've never had a report that originated from anyone I thought was eccentric or ignorant, and some reports you can't exactly ignore. Happinen said that while most UFOs are eventually identified as aircraft or odd natural phenomenon, about 2% of UFO sightings remain unexplained, carried simply as unknowns on the records of Project Blue Book, the Air Force's UFO study project. The lieutenant admits that even he has seen things in the sky he could not identify, but I wouldn't say just because that it was a flying saucer. That's ridiculous. The whole idea of calling something an unknown admits that you don't have any idea what it is. Happinen continued that his greatest problem in UFO investigation is lack of information. Sometimes people accuse the Air Force of not telling everything it knows about UFOs. The public doesn't tell the Air Force everything it knows either. Descriptions of UFOs, said Happinen, are often so vague that quite frankly it's hard to tell what the heck some of these things are. If somebody just says he saw a light in the sky, we can't do very much. The UFO officers said persons who cite UFOs should note the following: the exact time of sighting, how long the object was visible, elevation in the sky in degrees. It is impossible to tell the altitude in feet of something that is unrecognizable, Happinen warns. The size of the object compared to something ordinary, the object's shape and behavior, the condition of the sky at the time of the sighting. People reporting UFOs such as Mark and Gail Boomala are contacted by Lieutenant Happinen for an interview. They are given a simple but thorough booklet in which they describe in detail what they observed. Directions are supplied for the drawing of diagrams, and the booklet contains space for the observer's supplementary remarks. Happinen then correlates the data supplied by the witness with other sighting reports, aircraft scheduled for the area, and other such items of information that might give a clue to what the UFO really was. Often, the identification attempt is successful. Sometimes it is not. One of the unknowns that intrigues me personally is the McMinnville, Oregon sighting in the early 1950s, Happinen relates. The witness produced movies of the unknowns in the sky. He went on to say that the Condon Committee at the University of Colorado, which recently completed one of the most extensive studies yet made of UFOs for the Air Force, had subjected the films to extremely detailed analysis. They could not prove the films to be hoaxes. There was something up there. It's interesting to me because it's virtually the only sighting the committee studied that doesn't have a good explanation. Hapanen gave the titles of 3 books on UFOs, which he personally had found informative. The Condon Committee's report, UFOs Identified by Philip J. Klass, and Anatomy of a Phenomenon by Jacques Vallée. Investigations are still pending on the UFO sighted by the Bulamas June 30th at 9:40 p.m. Hapanen revealed sightings took place at the same time over Dunsmuir and Medford. They were reported to Kingsley Field by KMED-TV, Medford. UFO reported. From the East Oregonian, September 4th, 1969. Hermiston. City police reported a sighting of a large, unidentified flying object about 4:30 a.m. today north of Hermiston. The police officer said the object appeared to be about a third the size of the moon and was giving off a lot of light, and appeared to be moving in the direction of Pendleton. The officers said the object appeared to be at an elevation of 5,000 to 10,000 feet, and a ball of light fell from the object as it moved through the sky during the 5 minutes it was visible. Hermiston police were alerted by the sheriff's department at Goldendale, Washington, when the UFO was sighted in that area. More UFO sightings reported in area. From the Roseburg News Review, August 8, 1969. In the third sighting of unidentified flying objects in the Roseburg area within a week, Teresa Smith, 17, said she saw more than 20 flashing red, white, and blue lights over the Callahan Mountains and the city of Roseburg. Teresa, the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Tom Smith of Route 4, Box 660, said she stood outside for more than an hour watching the objects through her binoculars. She said she called her mother and that the two of them saw one moving real fast with red lights. She said 2 more appeared. The lowest one, said Teresa, had a real bright red light. She said she saw about 8 of the objects over Roseburg. There were a whole series of them, she said, and added that often one of the objects would leave and another one would move in. Mrs. Smith later called and said her daughter had bad vision and there were actually only 5 flying objects. She said she knew of these since she was standing with her daughter outside when the 2 of them saw the lights. According to Mrs. Smith, the lights were only flying over the Callahans. Douglas County Sheriff's deputies who responded to the call at about 10:30 p.m. Thursday night said nothing was found in the area and nothing could be seen in the area at that time. Other sightings were on Thursday and Friday of last week. More residents see UFO ships. From the Greater Oregon, August 8, 1969. Residents of Southern Oregon last Friday reported seeing a mysterious UFO which some said had bright red and green lights, while others described it as having orange and white lights. Nearly 30 people made the sightings during a 2-hour period in the vicinity of Roseburg, Winston, Melrose, 10 Mile, and Looking Glass. 3 Douglas County Sheriff's deputies investigating the reports said they saw the unidentified flying objects. Deputy Bill Dirty said he saw an object some 3 feet in diameter which made a slow landing, stayed about 20 minutes, then move west at a slow rate of speed. A pilot for Roseburg Skyways reported seeing an object as he was landing his plane. He attempted to keep up with the UFO, but it moved too fast for him. Other parts of the country have also reported UFOs recently, and one farmer's large acreage of green beans shows a perfect circle of bare ground where 2 people witnessed a saucer-shaped craft make a night landing. The farmer was skeptical at first, but sure enough, where beans had been growing the day before was a circle of bare earth, with no sign of fire or anything similar. As the commentator put it, wouldn't it be odd if scientists on some far-off sphere were examining an earth sample and concluded it was made of green beans? UFO seen in Toledo-Siletz area. From the Greater Oregon, September 5th, 1969. 2 students near Milwaukie, Oregon took 2 good pictures of a flying saucer which they observed several months ago. We reported this happening, and the pictures were sent to the committee, which have been given $500,000 to investigate these ships from a space planet. Our latest information concerning these UFOs, unidentified flying objects, comes from Toledo. This news story goes into detail about a spaceship which was in the Pioneer Mountain District in a sparsely populated section of Lincoln County between Toledo and Siletz. Here is the information we received this week. Among the residents of the area is the Douglas Reeves family, who lived there until frightened away by the activity of a spaceship. A total of some 35 to 40 persons claim to have witnessed some type of strange phenomena near the Reeves property. This strange phenomena ranged from spaceship-like crafts, pulsating, donut-shaped lights that crawled along the walls of the house, to strange, stump-like creatures. The beginning of these weird events on Pioneer Mountain was in early March. During a walk through the woods, the Reeves' 16-year-old daughter Kathy and a girlfriend suddenly glimpsed from the side of their eyes an apparent fire burning in an open section of ground some distance away that had been cleared of trees some time previous. Approaching closer, the teenagers noticed that instead of a fire, there was some type of object hovering a few feet above the ground. The object, as the girls later described it, appeared to be giving off a ruddy glow which could be seen for some distance. The object appeared to be dome-shaped with sparks and smoke flying in all directions, as if the craft were burning. Finally managing to get up some nerve, the 2 overly excited and somewhat frightened girls headed for their nearby homes to get some older witnesses to back up their observations. Hurrying now through the woods, they suddenly found themselves confronted with what appeared to be a large searchlight beacon. Thinking that someone was either trying to frighten them or play a joke on them, they both picked up some rocks and threw them at the light's source. Suddenly, and without warning, they found themselves surrounded by identical lights, which seemed to be moving in on them from all sides. Now near panic, the 2 raced at top speed to tell their parents. On arriving home, minutes later, the 2 teenagers managed to blurt out to Kathy's mother, Evelyn Reeves, what happened. At first, Mrs. Reeves didn't take the girls seriously. She felt that they must be trying to pull her leg, not having taken seriously before reports of UFOs. However, she noted that they were extremely frightened and would not retract their story no matter how hard she tried to get them to. After talking with her husband and the parents of the other girl, Mrs. Reeves decided that the best thing to do was keep quiet about what had supposedly happened. After all, if these weird things had occurred, who would believe them? They figured that the entire family would be held open to ridicule. However, had the family known about what was to come, they may have thought otherwise. At about midnight, after everyone had retired for the evening, Mrs. Reeves was awakened from a sound sleep to find the air filled with a strange pitched hum like nothing she had ever heard before. Getting up to investigate, her eyes were at once attracted to the partially open window of her bedroom. In between the curtains, she could make out a light that appeared to be pulsating. As she drew the curtains apart, the entire bedroom was suddenly filled with a harsh glow emanating from what appeared to be a large object sitting in her yard. Suddenly, all the rooms in the house were filled with the same glow. Likewise, appearing from nowhere were strange donut-shaped lights which seemed to be creeping up the very walls of their dwelling. By this time, the rest of the family had also awakened. The high-pitched hum was louder and more menacing than ever, and the weird crawling lights were rapidly increasing in number. Grabbing a gun from his rack in the living room, Mr. Reeves ran to the window and pointed it towards someone or something he thought he had seen moving outside. Suddenly, the house sparked anew with bright lights. Many more crawling lights also appeared on the walls, and for a time, it seemed as if the family would be overcome by hundreds of these strange, donut-shaped lights. The original reddish glow gradually dimmed and then disappeared. The humming sound faded away, and the night was black and still once again. Although the Reeves were very frightened, they still felt it to their advantage to keep their invaders secret. And with the dawn of a new day, all seemed back to normal again. It was as if the previous night's happening had been part of another world, totally separate from normal reality. By and by, the family forgot about the strange sounds, the bright red lights in their yard, and most of all, the lights that had seemingly creeped up their very walls. They soon dismissed the entire affair, feeling it would be best to leave well enough alone. They felt as if the worst had passed, and they could again live a normal existence. But their hopes were in vain, for the weird sights and sounds soon returned to haunt their home on Pioneer Mountain. In the weeks to come, the Reeves family was continually shaken out of a sound sleep about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to find the entire house filled with a rosy glow, which they described as being so intense that you could read a newspaper by it. In fact, these encounters became so frequent and annoying that they finally boarded up their windows in an attempt to keep the lights out. Even this failed, and the crawling, donut-shaped lights continued to creep up the walls. On one particular occasion, Mrs. Reeves happened to look toward the door leading into their darkened living room and saw a cloud about the size and shape of a watermelon, but transparent, just hanging in mid-air. It seemed to hover there for minutes before it dissipated into nothing. It was at this point that the family agreed it would be best to call in outsiders to have a look at their UFO phenomena. One of these outsiders was Delbert Mapes, who told investigators how he had himself seen various lights and objects flying in a helter-skelter fashion through some trees in the Reeves apple orchard. He described the phenomena as consisting of small, round, disc-shaped objects giving off a bright light traveling at high speeds. He also indicated that they produced a high-pitched hum that was almost inaudible. Another of the witnesses was Max W. Taylor, a personal friend of the family. Taylor is a chemist employed by the Georgia-Pacific Corporation. At the request of Mr. Reeves, he and a group of neighbors camped out on their property in an attempt to find a rational explanation for the phenomena. Although Taylor was highly skeptical when first contacted, he soon joined the ranks of believers. For he was not on the site more than a half hour when he saw a number of strange, pulsating spots of bluish light. According to Taylor and the other witnesses, one spot turned up on the outside wall of the living room, while the other spot appeared at the opposite end of the home on the outside wall of the kitchen. Surprisingly enough, there was no apparent source for the light, and no beam could be seen in between. Making a call to the local police, Taylor brought in a deputy sheriff, Thomas W. Price, from Lincoln County. At about 1:30 a.m., Price arrived at the Reeves, and as he was disembarking from his squad car, He glanced up and saw a fast-moving object that was flying from northeast to southeast. It was accompanied by a high-pitched whine. Writing in the police log, Price said that the UFO itself was orange color and appeared to be spinning on end. As it headed in a southeasterly direction, the object suddenly came to a complete stop and then made a sweeping motion toward the southwest and disappeared over the horizon. Deputy Price stated further that before this incident, I had never believed in UFOs, but I can only report what I myself was a witness to. It actually made the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. Other residents, likewise skeptical, also reported odd occurrences. 5 to 6 persons, who the police termed apparently sober, insisted that they had seen stump-like creatures moving across an open field near the Reeves residence on 2 occasions. A 17-year-old high school student, Douglas Whitlow, found himself being followed by an object down the Siletz-Toledo highway. The object remained visible for nearly an hour over the area, and witnesses told how it crisscrossed the open highway following the auto's bright lights at low altitude. The description of the UFO tallied with the objects seen on the Reeves property. But perhaps the best look at the UFOs came from a group of 6 teenagers who told reporters they had viewed the objects through binoculars near the Reeves home. They described the craft as oval-shaped with a string of red, blue, and green lights on their upper sections. Peering at the objects even closer, they felt that there was searchlights inside that appeared to be scanning the nearby earth, perhaps taking photographs. This light also seemed to change color from red to blue and then to a bright shade of green. Nor was the Pioneer Mountain area free of what appeared to be physical evidence of these strange visitors. As early as May, Ed Keenan, a logger, came upon a large chunk of metal which, under analysis, turned out to be pure sodium. This find was made by Keenan as he walked along a path which passes by a small creek bed on the outskirts of Kernville. To this date, no one has been able to locate the source of the sodium or discover what its use might have been. A bomb disposal team from a nearby army base brought out the fact that the object could not have been in the area very long, since sodium is highly explosive when exposed to water. Also discovered near the Reeves Pioneer Mountain home was a large quantity of aluminum shavings, which an analysis shows was composed of magnesium. Taylor suggested that the pilots of the strange craft might be dropping the shavings in an attempt to jam nearby radar tracking stations. Now the Reeves are gone, and so are the lights, the spaceships, and the crawling stump-like creatures. The new owner of the Reeves' former home denies seeing anything unusual now, although he had witnessed various phenomena before the Reeves' sudden departure. Here indeed is a classic case where apparently the operators of the UFOs seen in the Toledo, Oregon area were keeping watch on a single Earth family, perhaps with the intention of recording their daily activities, much the same as we would do upon the discovery of new life forms, whether it be microscopic or higher on the evolutionary scale. Did the strange phenomenon follow the Reeves family to wherever they had fled? We may never know, for the family informed nobody of their destination. It has now been several months since these strange happenings occurred in the Toledo-Siletz area. We have many subscribers in that district. We would like to hear from any of our readers who may have known of the visits of the strange craft from outer space. Please write in or phone us if you have any more information. "25 persons report sighting of UFOs." From the Roseburg News Review, August 1st, 1969. Unidentified flying objects were reportedly sighted in the Melrose, Looking Glass, 10 Mile, Roseburg, and Winston areas by more than 25 persons who made calls to the sheriff's office in the early morning hours today. Sightings also were reported by 3 investigating sheriff's deputies, a pilot from Roseburg Skyways, and several citizen band radio operators residing in the areas. Numerous objects emitting bright red and green or blue lights were reportedly seen over a period of more than 2 hours, but no one reported being close enough for identification, and the objects remain a mystery today. One of the investigating deputies, Gary M. Lease, reported he received a call at 12:24 a.m. that several bright flying objects had been spotted in the above areas by several citizen band radio operators. He was dispatched to the Melrose substation to investigate. The deputy said he made contact with Gary Sand of Route 3, Box 1355, Roseburg, and was advised one of these objects was now landing on the Callahan side of Reston Ridge, some 20 miles northwest of Roseburg. The deputy then proceeded to Callahan Road. He said he also observed a bright white and orange light about 3 feet in diameter, making a very slow landing on the side of Reston Ridge. This object also was observed by Deputy Bill Birdie and by Vern Thomas, a CB radio operator of 547 Northeast Jackson Street, Roseburg. This object remained at this location for about 20 minutes, then started moving west at a slow rate of speed. During this time, several calls came in that several more objects were moving in the direction of Looking Glass, the officer related in his report. The officer and Deputy Birdie then proceeded to the Looking Glass store and observed several more objects, white with flashing red and green lights, just over the top of Reston Ridge, heading east. These objects were observed by approximately 10 persons in the area. During this time, another object was spotted near the Winston area and reported to Winston police. Several objects were reported over the 10-mile area. Deputy Jim Sloter reported he observed several of these while in the process of checking the Reston Ridge area. 20 to 25 calls came into the sheriff's office during this time from residents in the areas. At 3 a.m., several objects were still being reported flying around several miles south of Roseburg. A call also was received from a pilot at Roseburg Skyways that while making a landing at Roseburg, he had observed a very fast-moving object but could not keep up with it. He stated it was red and green and very bright. Flying saucers over Bennett Creek? From the Cottage Grove Sentinel, August 6, 1970. Recently, I was on a neighborhood campout in which all noted the presence of a flying object. Our group, composed of 4, was walking into an open field when from out of the sky we saw what appeared to be a crescent-shaped object hovering above a cluster of trees 1 1/4 miles away. The 4 of us observed this object for some 35 seconds as it slowly descended out of sight. We could not investigate because it was over private property and it was already 10 p.m. I would have dropped the matter completely if it wasn't for the fact that while observing the object, it made no noise whatsoever. If it was any other type of craft, it seemed to me it would have made some sort of engine sound. The names of the other persons with me during the sighting were Jeff and Scott Graham, 16 and 14, and my brother Ed, who is 14. After seeing this, I began to get curious and started asking around about people who had seen these unidentified objects. I found that a girl named Mary Krantz had sighted a UFO last July on Bennett Creek Road, along with Miss Krantz, 15, were brother and sister, Robert and Susan, when she spotted the object a half-mile from their house at 1511 Bennett Creek Road. Under questioning, she said that she had seen one object, red and global-shaped, about 45 feet around and traveling about 10 to 15 miles per hour. She said that the object had no odor, made no noise, and left no vapor trail of any kind. She said that during the 10 minutes she observed the object, the sky was clear. I found another person that did not want his name to be mentioned that sighted an object near the same place Miss Krantz reported her sighting. The 17-year-old boy had his brother with him at the time of the sighting, which he said was about 3/4 of a mile from the Krantz house. He said that he saw a football-shaped object flying slowly over the power lines at 9 p.m. He said it was solid, emitted a glow that lit up the trees, and was about 60 feet long and 20 feet wide. And it did not leave any vapor or make any noise. He said the sky was clear. Realizing that many people would not be convinced by statements from minors, I contacted an adult that I heard had made a sighting. Her name is Virginia Graham, 1411 Bennett Creek Road, a 37-year-old housewife. She said she saw one object shaped like a football about 180 feet long, traveling 3 times faster than her car and about 2,000 feet in the air. She said that no vapor trail, odor, or sound was made or left by the craft. All 3 of the witnesses said that it was clear at the time of their sighting, and all 3 said they were telling the truth and would be willing to take a polygraph test regarding their statements. Facts to consider. All of the sightings took place within 3 miles of each other on Bennett Creek Road. In all of the sightings, the object was football-shaped. In none did the object make any noise, leave any vapor trail, or make any odor. And it was clear weather during the sightings in each case, ruling out the possibility of the sightings being caused by some freak of the weather. Because of these facts, I can safely say that the objects or object observed was an unidentified flying object. UFOs reported in local area. From the Milwaukee Review, March 4th, 1970. Although the Air Force has officially canceled unidentified flying objects due to a lack of interest, concern over UFOs has picked up in the North Clackamas County area during the week. At least 2 separate sights of a very bright white light object was reported in the Clackamas High School area on Wednesday night, and another was phoned into the Review Sunday from the Oak Grove area. The Jim Ellis family saw a lighted object that hovered over the high school, rose into the air over some trees, then moved toward the Ellis house and finally sped away toward Portland. My son Gary was the first one to spot the object, recalled Mrs. Ellis. He told me that it was just hovering near the ground, but by the time I had gone outside, whatever it was rose into the air and began drifting toward our house. All I could make out were 3 large light sources, which reminded me of floodlights. There wasn't any particular color other than white, but we did hear sort of a high-pitched just before it disappeared. It was visible for about 10 minutes, but we couldn't establish its size, she told the Review. The object began moving toward Portland, and my husband went around the corner of the house to watch it. He said all of a sudden it just disappeared at a tremendous rate of speed, and that was the last anyone here saw of it, Mrs. Ellis noted. George Chewy, another resident of that area, also saw a bright object in the same vicinity described by the Ellis family. I spotted a bright object made up of 3 lights, and it appeared to me to be over the Westwood and Gladstone area, Chewy said. I couldn't tell how far away it was or how large it was. I watched it for about 5 minutes and then went in the house. Following the sightings in the Clackamas area, Mr. and Mrs. L.H. Dino, Oak Grove, told the Review that on Sunday around 7:30 p.m., they spotted a slow-flying, glowing object heading in an easterly direction. My wife and I watched this object for about 10 minutes, recalled Dino. I was absolutely fascinated with it. I thought it was going to explode. Twice we saw sparks flying out from under it, and at first I thought it might be a private airplane in trouble, but its actions and shape leads me to believe that it wasn't an airplane or a helicopter. I've been an aerial photographer for 30 years, and I've never seen an airplane with characteristics like that, he said. It gave off a steady light and appeared to be climbing before we lost sight of it in the cloud cover, Dino said. We didn't hear any sound, and from our angle of vision, I wouldn't even want to make a guess as to its size or speed. I have no idea as to what it was, but I don't believe it was an airplane. The strange sightings by residents of this area and the descriptions given bring to mind the eerie reports and observations that occurred near Exeter, New Hampshire a few years back. However, those sightings were witnessed by a large number of residents, including local police. Police here reported no calls concerning UFOs. The Exeter sightings were first explained by officials of the Air Force's Blue Book project as swamp gas. However, that theory was quickly withdrawn after a rebuttal by science professors from a nearby college. Project Blue Book was dropped by the Air Force last year after an independent study conducted by the University of Colorado could discover no scientific evidence to warrant further study. Perhaps what was cited last week was nothing more than timber gas. Witnesses tell of queer light in local skies. From the Klamath Falls Herald and News, March 5, 1970. What was it? An unidentified flying object? A cloud? That's what a number of people looking at the sky last night wondered. Today, the Air Force at Kingsley Field reported that 2 civilian tower operators sighted a beam of light to the south and west of Kingsley Field about 7 or 7:15 p.m., moving toward the northwest. One operator estimated it was about 30 degrees in width, about 4 or 5 miles long, and described it as very bright. The brilliant stream of light appeared for a few minutes, then faded into a haze. The tower operators contacted local radar approach control at RATCON in Seattle. Neither RATCON units in Klamath Falls and Seattle could detect the objects on their radar. About 6 Naval Reserve personnel driving to their weekly drill session also noticed the light, which they said appeared at first to be landing lights of an airplane. Ralph Below, a chief radio man, said he was driving on Homedale Road when he first noticed it. It looked like a spotlight, he said, but what could have a light that bright? Then it seemed to fade. Ed Lieb, a first-class radioman staff member of the faculty, said he saw it too. Yeah, 16 little green men got out, he chuckled. Flying saucers in area? From the Milwaukee Review, 1970. Have flying saucers come to North Clackamas County? They may have, if a letter and partial photo received by the Review this week are authentic and not the work of a practical joker. In late February, the Review reported mysterious objects had been sighted in the vicinity of Clackamas High School and in the Oak Grove area, the latter by an experienced aerial photographer. An anonymous correspondent this week has sent the newspaper part of a photograph showing an object that bears a resemblance to the famed flying saucers. The writer cut away part of the photo because, according to the accompanying letter, it contained views of my house and of my child. The letter indicated 4 pictures had been taken, but only one came out. The typed letter states, "On the night of July 15th, I noticed a strange object in the distance, to the south of my house. As it drew closer, I noted it seemed to resemble a straw hat. It made no noise, however. I got my camera and shot 4 quick pictures, but only one came out. I do not want to disclose my name or address because most people reading this would think I am off my rocker. I cut up the picture because it contained views of my house and of my child. I did note that there was a glowing yellow light on the rear of the object that looked like a glowing antenna. I read the story written in the review last spring about the UFO seen in the same area I saw this one. It did not shoot sparks like the one in the previous sighting. I followed the object for about 3 minutes until it flew out of sight. I did not really believe in UFOs, but now I have no doubt that there is some truth to the UFO reports. Reaction among review staff members after receiving the picture and letter was mixed. After testing a popular toy, however, staff members decided the object in the photo definitely is not a frisbee. UFO lands? From the Springfield News, August 9th, 1971. An unidentified flying object was sighted east of Springfield early Sunday morning, according to the Lane County Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office received its first call about the UFO from Ollie Williams, Route 3, Box 194, Springfield. Williams said he saw an object resembling a comet without a tail from his residence on Mackenzie View Drive, northeast of Springfield. According to the sheriff's reports, Williams saw the fiery object about 12:40 a.m. south of his home. He said it fell out of sight behind some hills, possibly landing in the area of Camp Creek Road. Deputies were unable to locate anything unusual in that area, but Springfield police reported it received numerous calls about the same object, also described as possibly a burning aircraft, which appeared to have fallen in the Cedar Flats area. While en route to Cedar Flats Road, the deputies received a report from Springfield police that the UFO also might have landed near the Weyerhaeuser Company dump off Weyerhaeuser Road. The sheriff's office reports its deputies were unable to locate the UFO in any of those areas, but noted they are basically in line with each other in accordance with Williams' original report. A check with Malone Sweet Airport revealed that no aircraft were known to be in the area. Eugene Aviation Service, however, noted that a pilot who flew from Longview, Washington, about 2:40 a.m. saw 3 bright meteorites in the area of the UFO. Portlanders chase UFO around city. From the Oregon Journal, August 12, 1972. 2 groups of young Portland adults chased an unidentified flying object around the city for a half-hour Friday night and finally watched it disappear over the West Hills. It looked just like the spaceship in the TV series Lost in Space, said Rick Young, 20, of 7344 Southeast 85th Avenue, a warehouseman for Levitt's Furniture Company. Young said he was sitting in his house and glanced out a window to the north between 10:30 and 11 p.m. when he spotted the object. He was so surprised that he was unable to speak for several minutes, he said. When he pointed the object out to friends and neighbors, they all saw it too, and they got into their cars in an attempt to follow it. It was round, seemed to have about 30 lights around the outside and 1 light in the middle, all white lights, no red, and it appeared to be revolving around the center. It seemed to be moving from one part of town to another, and it finally disappeared, he reported. Others with Young who saw the object were his wife, Margot, Bob and Mary Gordy of 5911 Southeast Knapp Street, and Bill Zeimer, who lives with the Youngs, plus 4 other neighbors. 3 teenage girls reported a similar sighting about the same time, close to 11 p.m. They said they had just driven from the West Hills onto Interstate 5 and crossed the Marquam Bridge and were about to turn east onto Interstate 80 North when one of the girls looked up and saw this round thing going around in circles. Terry Bowlby, 19, of 3610 Southwest Santa Monica Court, said she was driving when Donna Parker, 19, of 3909 Northeast Fremont Street, pointed the object out to her and Donna's sister Karen, 14, who also was in the car. The girls turned off the freeway and drove out to where they thought they were able to see it real close. They saw it head west over the Northeast Lombard Street, then disappear. Terry said what they saw appeared to have lights around the sides. It looked like something at a carnival, and the lights were all white. She said there were no red lights. She said the object's movements were smooth and that it did not appear to be moving fast, about the speed of a car. Terry and Donna will be sophomores at Oregon State University this fall, and Karen will be a freshman at Grant High School. Young said he and his friends drove up to Mount Tabor and they could see the object over the Willamette River. At one point, they saw an airplane flying above it. He said they saw it fly around the radio and television towers before it disappeared. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you liked it. Shout out to user Slime9 for requesting this week's state. Let me know in the comments below what state you'd like to see next. If you have your own scary story or close encounter to share, you can either send it in the comments, post on my subreddit, r/ihaveaspookystory, or send it to my Gmail, pinkpossiblystories@gmail.com. Maybe your story will be in a future video. Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the shadows bite.